Hey, how's it going? Alex here from IdeaSpot. Today we have a Blocksy theme tutorial. So we're going to be setting up this basic website in Blocksy. You'll learn all the skills you need to know to edit a basic page using the Gutenberg editor and Blocksy. We'll also cover how to set up your blog page. So we've got a customized blog page here, and we'll also cover how to set up your contact form in Blocksy as well. So all the things you need to build a basic website using Blocksy are covered in this tutorial. So if this sounds interesting, then keep watching. Okay, for this tutorial, we are just starting with a blank WordPress install. This is just a blank site that you get when you first install WordPress. You can reset your own WordPress to get it back to default. If you want to check out my previous tutorial on Reset WordPress, that'll show you how to get back to this state if you've already set something up and you want to reset. Otherwise, if you don't even have hosting, I've got some hosting recommendations over on my blog on ideaspot.com.au. If you're looking for a new web host or if you're looking to upgrade your WordPress hosting, I really like Cloudways overall. I think SiteGround is really good for beginners, and Vultr is really good for the more advanced people who just want to run their own server and administer their own server themselves. So one of these three is going to be suitable for you, I think. And for Cloudways, I think that's best overall. I do have my own coupon code for Cloudways as well. So if you use that IdeaSpot code, you'll get a discount. And each of them have their own tutorial as well, if you follow the links on my blog. So check those out. Let's get back to the Blocksy setup. So we are going to go to Appearance and Themes, and then go to Add New. We are going to search here for Blocksy. Blocksy should pop up here, and click Install. Then we click Activate. As soon as the theme is active, you'll get an option here for installing the Blocksy companion. So let's go ahead and install that one. Now here it's going to prompt you to opt into their notifications. We can go ahead and skip that one. And from here we can find the Blocksy starter sites. So we click that starter sites tab, and these are the Blocksy starter sites. So there's 6 of them, which isn't a huge number, but the ones they do have, they do look quite professional, and they're pretty high standard. The first one, and probably my favorite, is the business one. So I think a lot of big businesses have websites that look very similar to this. So this is going to be a very useful starter site to use for a lot of projects. The second one is the shop. This is a very clean WooCommerce setup. So you've got your shop and products, product categories. You've got your little add to cart buttons. So quite a nice clean one for online shopping. You've got like an example mobile app website, which looks pretty modern. You've got that dark background, which is pretty cool. You've got a charity website, which is pretty basic, a travel blog, which is quite nice. Looks like a pretty well-designed travel blog, to be honest. This is very nice. And the one, I also really like this one, Blocksy News. This looks like quite a credible news website. So if you wanted to blog about anything in terms of if you want to run a tech blog or a professional blog, this would be a great one to use for a professional blog. I think this would be quite a good one if you were looking at affiliate blogging, those kind of projects where this kind of theme would be perfect. It's also worth noting that these starter sites can be designed for Gutenberg, Brizy, and Elementor. So in the case of the business one, you get all 3. In the case of the shop, it's only for Brizy and Elementor, no Gutenberg. So just check. Each of them have different combinations of page builder support. So in this case, I'm going to go for the business website, and we're going to be using Gutenberg because I think if you're using Blocksy, it's been promoted as a Gutenberg friendly theme, and Gutenberg gives you the best performance. So I think if you're considering Blocksy, you're probably using Gutenberg, but feel free to use Elementor or Brizy as well. But today I think I'll try Gutenberg, and let's go ahead and import this one. The first thing it's going to ask you here is to install a child theme. I think this is good practice if you want to make advanced customizations down the track. So let's go ahead and click Next. And then we choose our page builder. We're going to be using Gutenberg today, as we explained earlier. Click Next. And then it's going to install a couple plugins that we need for the starter site, Quebly and WP Forms. We click Next. And we're going to import the content. So let's go ahead and click Install. And then we just have to wait a few seconds for this starter site to install. So that was actually pretty quick. That'll depend on your connection, but let's go ahead and view the site. So this is our Blocksy starter site. Here we go. So here we've got your typical hero image background with your text and call to action buttons here. The next step is you've got some grid with a nice hover effect on there with another call to action. You've got your left image with some bullet points here with icons and another call to action there. And you've got some more bullet points, some videos, another big video down the bottom, and testimonials. And then we've got one last call to action, and then there's a footer. And the footer's got your typical links, contact info, additional info, and you've got your bottom footer with your copyright info and your social icons. And you're not just getting the home page, you're also getting about, blog, and contact. So the about page, again, a similar idea. And the contact page, it's a similar idea, but you've got a WP Forms contact form here that you'd need to set up. And the blog page is quite nice, I think. You've got this blog grid, you've got your excerpt, you've got a sidebar. We're going to work on that a bit later. And the blog posts themselves have the featured image background, you've got your breadcrumbs, a couple of categories there, and a sidebar. So lots of things you can customize on here. Let's get to work. I think the first thing we'll do is start with looking at the top of the page here. We've got our logo, menu, and call to action button. So let's look at how we can customize this. Let's click customize. First thing you'll notice about the Blocksy customizer is that it's pretty easy to use. If we hover on the header, we can see we're on the main row of the header, and each section of the header has a little icon next to it when you hover, and you can actually edit each part of the header. So let's go to the logo for a start. Click on that one. That'll take us to our logo options. We've got our logo options here, and we also have our main row of the header down here. So we can see that our header is made up of a logo, a menu, and a button. So that's the logo, that's the menu, and that's the button. And there are also other areas where we can add other things to our header to make it more complex or more functional for our visitors. Now for our logo, it's important to realize that we've got 3 different logos. So this is different from most themes. Usually you only have 1 or 2. In this case, we've got 3 because we have a regular logo and a transparent logo, which in this case, the main page is using the transparent header. So we're using the transparent logo. And we also have the sticky state logo. So in free themes, it's rare to get a sticky menu, but as you scroll down, we can see we have a sticky header. So this is the logo they use on the sticky header. This is the logo they use on the transparent page. And on other pages, this is a transparent one. Contact page is a regular logo. So make sure you've got options that look good on all 3 styles. Usually with the transparent state, you're going to make sure that you have a darker or colored background where your white text will be readable on that background. And the opposite is true as well. If you're using a light background or a very light image, you want to use a dark transparent state logo. So make sure you get that part right. The other way to do it is just design a logo that looks good on all 3 options, which is what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to use my Idea Spot logo, which has a lot of contrast and a background of its own. So let's go and replace that logo now. So let's start with the transparent one so we can see the results straight away. Now, there's a few stock images in the media library already. What we're going to do here is upload a few extra stock images so we can customize this site to our own style. So I'm just going to drag in a few of my own stock images, let those upload. And for our logo, I'm just going to go with my standard Idea Spot logo. Click select. There we go. So it's quite small. We'll make that bigger in just a second. So to make it bigger, under logo height, we can see it's set to 17. I know my logo is 60 pixels, so let's make it 60. So that looks fine. And we'll repeat this process here as well. Select that for the standard logo and again for the sticky state. There we go. So let's check the sticky state. That looks fine. And I'm going to click publish here. And you just want to check a page that uses the standard logo. In this case, the blog page uses the standard logo. So just make sure that looks right. So that looks pretty cool. Let's go back here. So we can see the sticky one looks good. Scroll back up. The transparent one looks fine as well. The next thing we'll look at is this button. So let's go to that button. And we can see here, we've got a button that has a link and we can label it and we can link it. So instead of saying take action, we can make it say contact us. And the URL could take us to the contact page, for example. So let's just go to that contact page, grab the contact page URL and let's paste it in there and publish that. Another option could be just to remove the button altogether. So we could just hit the X button there. And removing it will take us to a menu of things that we can put in its place. So we can have custom HTML, we can have a button, we can have a second menu, we could have social icons or a search icon. So we could just drag that search icon in there, drop it there, and there we go. In a second, it should load up. There we go. There's our search icon. We can search the website. So you can choose. You can set this up how you want. This is just using the main row, but you can add top rows and bottom rows as well. So you can have lots of things on your header, very customizable. Finally, with our starter site header, let's look at this menu as well. So let's head to there. So this will give us some customization options for the display of the menu. So for example, at the moment, the selected page is the home page. It's just on highlighted white at the moment. The other ones are a little bit gray. If you hover, it'll change to that white color. We can see we're on home because that one is highlighted in white. You can change that highlight method. So for example, that will create a little blue underscore. This will highlight the whole item, and this will put lines above and below. So I quite like the default one. I think leaving this starter site default, the designer has done a really nice job. So we're not going to mess with it too much. We just want to get a good result as quick as we can with our own custom content. Now, if we want to actually customize what's in the menu, we need to go back to the main menu here, and we are going to head over to menu. So we'll need to scroll down to core, and under menus, we have the main menu. And this is our menu here, home, about, blog, and contact. We can add items by clicking there, and we can add and remove things. So if we wanted to remove the blog, we can go ahead and click the X. That'll drop the blog out. Not all businesses are going to need a blog on their page, for example. And you can also add in any pages or any posts that are on the website. So let's just grab one of these pages, maybe the sample page. We can just add that to the menu as well, and then click publish. We'll see our menus will update with what we've got. So we don't see our update. Let's refresh to see our update. So there we go. We can see we've replaced the blog with the sample page. So if we wanted to go back and change that again, rather than clicking this, we need to get to the menus again through the main page down there, core menus and the main menu. And we are going to remove the sample page, and we'll put our blog back there. And I like to have the blog maybe on the second option on the menu, and click publish. Now let's have a look at our header again. Let's go back to the main row there. It's worth noting that this is the header for the desktop, and we have previews for desktop, tablet, and mobile. So let's check out the tablet. Again, we need to check that this icon is proper, and this menu, let's double check. So this looks fine. We will need to set up those social icons, and we will need to fix that little logo. Let's have a look at the mobile one there. So again, we've got a small logo, and this looks all good. We'll need to update the address and work and those socials. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's start with the tablet, go to our logo, and again, we want to make that logo 60 pixels. There we go. And then we check mobile. That's already changed to 60, so that looks pretty cool. And then we can see in our mobile menu, we've got the off-canvas menu, which is this one here, has a HTML and socials. So let's go to the HTML for a start. There we go. This takes us to what we saw there, the address and the work hours. We can change those to suit our own address and work hours, obviously. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll just get rid of that address, put my own address there, and work hours. I don't want to start at 7. That's early. I'll start at 9, and I'm going to work until 4. That's how we do things in Australia. On the weekend, I'm not going to work on the weekend at all. There we go. Let's hit publish. So we can see that looks fine now. You can actually replace that text with any text you want. You don't have to use address or work hours. You could put whatever message you want there. Let's go fill the socials. Here we go. So by default, we've got Facebook, Twitter, and Insta. You can actually add every social you can think of is listed there, basically. I don't want Twitter. That's the only one I don't like. I don't mind Facebook and Instagram. The one I should personally add is probably YouTube, but I mean, you just add the ones you use personally. So what do we got? There we go. YouTube. Let's add it. Now, one little tricky step here is it says in small text, you can configure the social URLs here. And here is actually a link. And click that link. That'll take us to our social network accounts. You can also get to that through the main menu. If we scroll down to social networks there, and this has boxes for the URLs for all of your social networks. So for example, my YouTube channel is /c/ideaspot. So I'll copy that URL, go to my YouTube URL here, paste that URL in and publish that. And then just repeat that for any other social icon that you want to have on your website. So our header's progressing along fairly nicely. We've got our social set up now. So let's have a look. We've got our address, our work hours. The menu here is a different menu from what is on the desktop, I noticed, because we've got our sample page here. If we go to our desktop, it's just the 4 pages. So let's actually try and fix that up. So let's go back to our main menu. Let's go back again. Let's go to our menus. And let's click View All Locations. And we want our main menu to have the mobile menu. We want the main menu to display in there. And wait for that to update and click Publish. So now if we check out our mobile menu, what do we get? That's better. That's our proper main menu in there. So that will match whatever we have on our main menu. Now, obviously, if you want different menus on the desktop compared to the mobile, you can arrange that as well. You can actually go to menus and you can create new menus and you can have several different menus. So no drama there. But in this case, if you only are having 3 to 5 pages, 6 pages maybe, you can put the same menu on the desktop and the mobile, no problem. Should look just fine. So that's our basic header completed for the starter site. Let's go down and have a look at our footer while we're here. So quite a comprehensive footer they've got here. So let's go to Edit on this footer. Now this is a similar arrangement to the header where you've got different areas. We can add features to each area. So in this case, they've got a middle row, and the middle row has 4 columns. So they've got widget area 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then you can drag widgets into those areas. So it looks a bit busy in my view. I'd rather just have quite a simple footer. I like to just have the copyright info, maybe a small menu or some social icons or a phone number, something like that. Just keep it fairly simple. But if you do like this double section footer, you can go ahead and customize it to your own liking by editing each column. So you just click on the edit on the top left there. You've got contact info for this widget here. You can drop it down. Then you can change the title, you can change the text in there. They've got icons here that we can remove or add. So let's say we didn't want to display the regular phone, we just wanted the mobile phone. So we could remove the phone there. And that takes away one of those icons. And say we wanted to add, say, the website or something like that. Well, this is the website, so that seems a bit counterintuitive, doesn't it? Let's go with the work hours, for example. Add those work hours in. Work hours will pop up. There we go. 9 to 5, and then we just have to drop that down. You can change the text in there and there. So just work your way through that and customize everything to your own liking. But I think to keep this example as simple as possible, let's just have a single row footer, the bottom row, and let's remove these 4 sections from the footer. So just go ahead and click the X on each of those and remove them. That's the first one, now the second one, and the third one, and finally this one. Once that row is all clear, the whole section will drop down and we'll just be left with that bottom row. So we've got our copyright info. Let's go ahead and head to that copyright info. I just want copyright, current year, site title. We don't need powered by creative themes. We can just have copyright 2021 idea spot. I think that's good. The socials thing, I think we can delete that one. And rather than the socials, let's put a footer menu in there. So let's drag that footer menu in, drop it there. There we go, that's our footer menu. Now we'll actually have to customize that footer menu, so let's click on that one. You can customize the design there, and then to customize the actual menu items, again, we have to go back to the actual menu section of our customizers. That is under core menus, and let's go to all locations, and the footer menu, we want to define that as our main menu. So that will be exactly the same as what we've got on our header menu. So we've got a copyright message and a menu. But feel free to customize your header and footer as you like, put whatever sections you need in there. It is very, very flexible, which is quite enjoyable to work with. Now for the next step, I think we should look at the colors and typography. So I'm going to scroll back up to the top here and let's go back to our main menu. And let's scroll back up to the top of our menu here. And you'll notice that we've got options for colors and typography. This is quite an important step on customizing your website. So let's start with the typography. So these are the fonts that we're dealing with. So by default, we've got our system font for our base font, and heading is all based on the default. So system font basically for everything on this starter site. And the buttons are default, block quotes are Georgia, and the pre-formatted text is monospace. So I might just change those back to default just so everything looks uniform. So that'll be system font for everything. I quite like system font because it'll just be something like Arial or Helvetica, depending on which device. And it looks really good on every device because people will be used to using whatever the system default font is. It looks trustworthy and official. So I think that's a good way of doing it. And it's also the fastest one to load. But if you want to be a little bit different and have a little bit of more design flair, you can go ahead and change that base font to anything you really want. So you can scroll through there. You'll be able to preview those fonts there. So you could change it to Times Roman, for example, and that's what you'd get. But I like to use system font for the default text. I think that's a good way of doing it. For the actual heading, I think that's where I might use some design and actually choose a different heading. So you can see we've got options for H1, H2, H3, H4, and H5 and H6. So we have to set those up individually. I think this site uses mainly just H1, 2, and 3. I think this one's an H2. So if we change that H2 to, for example, let's go ahead and change it to a Montserrat, shall we? There we go. If you wanted some inspiration, you could just head over to fonts.google.com and you'll get the trending fonts here. So you can see Lato, Roboto, Montserrat's quite popular. Open Sans. I really like these. These are quite all look very professional. So anyway, let's get back on to customizing. So I might use Montserrat as our H2, and I'll change that for the H3 and H4, etc. as well. So I've skipped ahead and done all that. I've got H1, 2, 3, and 4 set as Montserrat. I actually think this one down here is an H4, and that is Montserrat. So I think it actually looks a bit too heavy for that level of text. So we could just change the weight, for example. Let's drop that back to maybe just a regular 400, and that looks a little better. The other thing you could do is for the H4, maybe just use the default, because it's small enough that you might want to use default as the H4. So for 1, 2, and 3, I've got Montserrat, and then default for my other fonts. Let's hit publish. And the nice thing about controlling your font through the customizer is that the fonts throughout the page will change. So as long as you stick to using H1, 2, 3, 4 and regular paragraphs, all your fonts will stay consistent throughout your website. So don't make the mistake of going in, editing an individual bit of text and changing its font, and then wondering why it looks out of whack when you go ahead and change something in here and you've got something on the page that overrides it. Try and avoid doing that. Just manage it all through your customizer. Okay, now let's have a look at the colors. This is another really nice feature in Blocksy. So by default, they've given us 3 palettes, and we've set to palette 1, which is a combination of gray, white, black, and purple. So we can scroll down. We can see the purple is the hover color, and the other shade of purple is the initial color. So we've got 2 shades of purple, a main heading color, your basic font color, and your background color. So only 5 colors, very, very simple and clean way of designing things with just 5 different colors. I think if we were doing like a very corporate looking website, we might stick to blues rather than purples. I think that's a little bit more conservative. So palette 2 might look a bit better for this design. And then if we wanted to tweak these blues a little bit, we can go either in head and go in there and drag this around and tweak that blue how we want to do it. So that actually is color 2, and color 2 corresponds with our link hover color. So when we hover over a link or a button, we see our color 2 come into effect. And so it's fairly self-explanatory. Let's say we wanted to make this heading color a little bit less drab. It's very dark grayish blue there. If we wanted to make it more of an attractive looking blue, maybe we could do that like this. Let's move that blue over there. That's a bit richer. So we can see we've got a bit more blue coming through on that. It's a subtle change, but these things do make a little bit of a difference. And finally, I still think that initial color 1 blue is a little bit harsh still. So we could make it a little bit darker. Let's see. That's a lot of contrast. It's just a matter of just tweaking it. And that's just personal preference at that point. So I think something like that, I think, looks decent. There we go. I'm obviously biased towards shades of blues and greys. That's what I use on my own website. So this is what I've gone for, but feel free to tweak that and use the palette that suits your own taste. And also remember to, when you're working on the website itself, try to always select from your global color palette rather than selecting colors manually, because then this makes it very easy. If you want to tweak something across the website, you just have to go back into the customizer and update your website, and everything will stay consistent as long as you just work with your palette. But I think we're pretty much good to go with our customizer. There's obviously tons and tons of things we can do in this customizer. I'm not going to cover all of it. I think we've done enough to get you started, and then you can explore on your own. So let's go ahead and start editing this actual home page and get a few of the main ideas covered. So let's close out of this customizer, and then we can edit the page. So here we are in our Gutenberg editor. So the first and probably the most important thing is our outline here. We can go to, we can navigate across the rows of this page. So this page is made up of mostly rows. There is a button group, a video pop-up, and a block wrapper, but mostly rows. And I think rows is the easiest way of working in Gutenberg in Blocksy. So let's look at our first row here. This is our header image hero type row. So first thing to realize is this is not a standard. This is not a standard Gutenberg row. This is actually a Quebly row. So you'll notice that when Blocksy installed, it gave us a plugin called Quebly Advanced Gutenberg Blocks. And this is a nice way of editing in Gutenberg that gives you more of a page builder type feel when you're working in Gutenberg. So you can create quite attractive looking blocks in Gutenberg, which is similar to what you get in something like Elementor. So first thing I'll do with this row is change its background to suit my own site. So I'm going to remove this building. Let's go ahead and edit that. And let's try something like this girl typing and select that one. That looks pretty cool. Let's try something else. I have a nice bridge from my hometown that I might try. So this one here. There we go. That's pretty cool as well. I think it's a little bit light for the white text, so we might try and make that darker with a dark overlay. So let's figure out how to do that. First thing you'll notice is over here is overlay is turned on, and we've got this grayish color transparent overlay. So we can just select that one. And what we can do with that is just make it more opaque, and that brings the color through. We can adjust the color to make it even darker. So if we want a very dark, deep blue, we can do that, and we can decide how much to let through. I like it quite dark. I really want that. That text to be very legible on top of the background. So that looks about right. I can quite make out that text. So that looks good. And the next thing I've noticed is these buttons don't really suit the background now. So let's go ahead and edit those. So all I did there was click on the button. Let's click on the style, and we want to change the design. And here we want to change our fill color. So first thing you'll probably notice is that these Quebly color palettes don't match our theme color palette. So we can adjust that in the Quebly settings and get this to match with our theme. That's going to speed up our workflow quite a bit. So let's go ahead, go to these three dots there. That's our options. We want the Quebly global settings. And here we've got our global colors. So that is set to preset 1. We can go to theme here, and these are our theme colors. And we actually can activate that one. So that'll change it to our theme colors. So now we hit update, and now all of our Quebly blocks are going to be using our theme colors. So everything's going to be nice and consistent now. So let's go back to our style, and we can go to the button, and we can look at the design. We can see it's chosen that color for the button. We could choose a different one if we wanted the brighter blue, maybe. Looks a bit better on that background. So let's choose the brighter blue as our button. Hit update when you're happy with what you've done. Now, editing the text is very point and click, so I don't really want it to say the hi friends there. I might just actually delete that block there. And we're Creative Themes, a modern design agency. So we can change that to whatever we want. So we are IdeaSpot, and we are based in Australia. So that's a bit better. We can update. And we can just change this filler text here. I'll just put something else in instead. There we go. Join us for weekly WordPress tutorials, and don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. So if you have found this useful so far, definitely give us a like. Just drop a comment in the comments and just say thanks. Those things really help the channel grow, because the more engagement the videos get, the more they'll get recommended to other people. So that really helps me. I really just want to keep doing free tutorials with free methods. I don't really want to have to promote paid products. So if we want to keep it running like this, make sure you just engage with the videos as much as you can. That really helps. So I'll get back to the tutorial now. All right, so let's have a look at what this looks like so far. So our header and our top section, it looks pretty nice on the desktop. If we right click and go inspect, we can look at it on other devices in Google Chrome. So iPhone X, this is what it'll look like. You can see that all these pre-designed blocks are already mobile responsive. So if I go to say iPad, this is what we look like. So we're looking pretty good across different devices as well here. So I think I'm pretty happy with how this is going. So make sure you stick to the format of these pre-designed blocks. If you try and design your own blocks, it is quite labor intensive in Gutenberg, trying to get everything to look good on all devices. The designers here have done a good job of getting things to look good on all devices already. So if you just edit the content and just tweak things a little bit to suit your own needs, then this is going to be the quickest workflow for working through Blocksy. Let's work on these buttons a little bit more. So we've got learn more here, and we can go to the actual style here. And this is where you'll find the most important thing you will need to do here, which is the button URL. By default, it's just a hash. You want to replace that with a link to one of your own pages. So I'm going to link to the About page. So I'll just paste that About page URL in there. You can click this gear and you've got options for opening in a new window or adding no follow to these. I'm just going to leave that as default. I'd like it to work as normal. Go ahead and click Update. And usually I'd rather just have one call to action rather than two. So I might just remove that second button. So there we go, and click Update. So just looking at our top section now, I think we're 90% of the way there. I notice I'm hovering that and it's not giving us a color change. If we go back to our editor here, click on the button under Style, and under the design, we've got normal colors and we also have hover colors. So I might change the full color on hover to that more dark color and click Update. Now we can see that we've got the darker color when we hover. It does have that light blue border, so let's change the border as well. So back on the editor, you've got the border color there. Let's change that to the dark color as well. Now when we look at it in the browser, that's a nice effect. So I'm pretty happy with that. That'll take us to the About page to learn more. So this is our first section all done. So it's just a matter of continuing through the page and customizing and editing things as you like. So, and if there's things you don't want, it's easy just to remove the whole block. So for example, if I didn't want these last two blocks on here, we could just go to here. We go to our row here. That selects the row, and we can just remove the whole row block. So there we go, that's gone. Same with this video here. I don't really want this one. Let's remove that one. And let's just keep cleaning things up to suit what we want to do. So again, I just want to get that whole row here and zap it. I'll just remove a few more things just so we have less work to continue on this tutorial. There we go. So that is a little bit tidier. Let's work on this block here. So clicking on it, we can see it's a block wrapper. We can have a background image, or we can have a gradient background. So let's use a gradient this time. We've done a background image. Let's use a gradient this time. So let's go with our theme colors. Let's go with a dark blue into a light blue in our theme. Maybe even a gray. Let's just play around with that and see how we can get it. I think this is okay. Probably the two blues is the best way of doing it. I actually prefer doing it around the other way. Have the light one here and then have the dark one over there. So yeah, it's a subtle effect. And I think the button might be a bit nicer if it had a little bit of a border. So let's go to the style and design, and let's change our border color to the white outline. And I think that's a bit nicer. And when we hover, I want it to keep that white border. There we go. So there, it has a slight change of color when we hover, and we've got our call to action. So that looks pretty decent. Let's update. And again, using this text is very straightforward. I'm just going to replace that. Let's learn to build with WordPress. So there we go. Let's build something. Let's learn to build with WordPress with free tutorials every week, and reach out now. I might link that to the contact page, for example. So let's just grab our contact page URL and paste it in there and update. Now there's a few other interesting blocks we can look at before we move on. So I think the second one is really cool. These are info boxes. So these are made up of an icon, a little bit of text, and a heading. So if we go in there, we can actually just change the heading. They're set to H2 by default. You can just click on them and edit them as we want. So I could change that to say web tutorials. There we go. And you'll find the actual icon under media. So that'll have all our icons here. So rather than having that screen, I could have maybe something like a book. Let's look for that. There's a book. And there we go. So web tutorials with a little book icon. So you can go ahead and customize all those. And when you're ready, you hit update. All of our colors and fonts are linked to our theme. So we're not going to touch those. I think this looks really good just how it is. And there's some filler text here that I might change while I'm here. What we do. We teach you how to use all the best WordPress hosting plugins and themes. And I made a little typo there. Let's just fix that. Plugins. There we go. Cool. Update. And what else might I do here? Let's change this guy. So clicking on this guy, we can find that it is a column and the background image is the guy. So let's go and click on the guy and let's get another guy. What about this guy? There we go. That looks like me. There we go. So I've got a picture of myself, and I'd like the image to be a little bit in a different position. So if we click advanced background, we can say background position is set to center. If we set it to say right center, that moved me across, and that looks a bit better. So let's go with that. And again, these little boxes here are info boxes. As we've dealt with previously, the main thing you probably want to change is the icon there. So if we want to just click on media, we can grab different icons for whatever we like. So go ahead and tweak those. And then when you're done, just click update and we can view that page. I think we're 90% of the way there. So you get the idea. We're editing the blocks, we're removing the ones we don't want and editing the ones we do want to keep. So I think that's the basis of our website. So let's go back to edit page and let's try adding a new block in. By far the easiest way of doing this is using the Quebly import layout option here. So this actually has 161 pre-designed sections that we can use on our page, and we can sort that by free, and the 61 of them are actually free. So we can basically choose any of these and add them into our website. As we click import, it's going to ask us to import the type settings. If we say no, it'll just use the settings that we already have. So by saying no, we've already got the fonts and the button colors already sorted out correctly. So now let's change our background here. We've got a bit of a landscape happening. So let's go with something else. We can go with maybe the girl typing. Select that one. They've already set up the dark overlay, so that already looks really good. Now just the button, I might change that a little bit. The white border, I might just change that a little bit. So rather than having a border color that's white, let's try that. I think that's a bit nicer. And same with the hover. So when we hover, we get a blue. Let's change that to a dark. There we go. And I think, what did I want to do with the design? And when we hover, the button color is the same. So let's make the fill darker. There we go. Good. Let's hit update. So that's all it is. We've added something new to our page that wasn't part of the starter site. Now, this is obviously at the bottom of the page. If we wanted to change where this is sitting, let's just select the block, use these arrows here to move them throughout the page, and let's get it into the section where it might look suitable for our project. So I think putting it there is not bad. Probably the only thing we need there is a little bit of margin above this, a little bit of white space between these buttons and the actual block. Probably the easiest way to do that is to select the block and let's insert one before. And all we do is just put a spacer in. So let's go for spacer. The default spacer I think looks fine. And let's hit update. So viewing our new page, we can scroll down and we can see our new section. It's ready to roll there. Looks pretty good. Even viewing it responsively, it looks good on any screen size as well. So they've designed it fairly well to fit on different screens and still look good. The one thing you might want to look out for is some line breaks that look different on different widths. So let's go back to our page and we can actually change those line breaks so it looks even on each screen. So let's do that now. So what I'll do here is remove the line breaks. So that is just one single line, and it will break depending on where the actual end of the column is. So if we head up here and we can see the column, that's how you tell where the actual text is going to break. So that looks fine on this screen. And now if we click update, it should look fine on every screen really, depending on what text we put in there. Let's reload. See, that looks pretty good. And as we change the responsiveness, it scales pretty good. So yeah, I quite like how that's working. So that's the basics of working on the actual page. So we can set up the page to look like how we want in the editor, adding sections, removing sections, bringing in new sections from the Quebly library. So you've got enough to go on and make a pretty decent website at this point. The only things we really need to look at now are the blog and the blog pages and the contact page. So the blog is like this. It's not something that you do in the editor. This is something you do through the customizer. So let's work on that now. Let's hit customize. Okay, here we are in the customizer. This is the blog page. To edit this, we go to blog posts here. Now this page is made up of two main areas. You've got your blog grid here and you've got a sidebar here. Now your blog structure is controlled by these options. You've got 5 different layouts to pick from. The grid one is probably the most normal, conventional method. This list is quite good as well. I like this one. But Just choose whichever suits. So this classic one would be quite good if you're doing more photography or design based rather than text based. But I think for articles, this grid or the list would probably be the one to go with. Now with our sidebar, the obvious option is turning it on or off. So we can turn it off just by flicking it off, and that gives us some more space for our actual articles. We can turn the sidebar back on and look at the options there. You can move it to the left or the right. And if you want to actually change what's in the sidebar, it's a little more tricky. You go to your main menu there, scroll down to widgets, and they've got your main sidebar in widgets. And so you can see in your sidebar, you've got your search, your posts, and you've got a quote as well. So you can actually reorder them by dragging them around. So you could move that, say, move the quote up above the posts. I'll move it back to where it was. And you can add lots of widgets to your sidebar. So you can add an image or contact info, those kind of things. So anything that you've got in your headers or footers, you can add them to your sidebar as well. So very handy to do. I do think that sidebars are going less fashionable these days, especially because most views are in mobile, and what you'll end up with is the post at the top and the sidebar below, and less people are even going to look at the sidebar. So you can pretty safely turn the sidebar off, and I think that cleans up the page quite a lot as well. So in my case, I'm going to go back to blog posts, and I think I'll just turn off the sidebar. All right, now let's make some more visual changes to this page. So the first thing we can do is turn the blog title on or off, and that will set the title there. So at the moment, it's called blog. If you actually wanted to change this, you could go into your dashboard under pages and just change the title of your blog page. So just a quick edit. I'll change this to news, for example, and update that. Go back in here, I'll reload it. We'll see our blog page is gone now, but we can just go back to blog posts here and click news there, and we can just close that one. And if we turn the blog title back on here, we can see we've got news now instead of blog. So that's how you change that title. Now there's a few fancy things you can actually do with the title. So we can go in here and we've got actually some options on styling the title. First thing we might do here is change the horizontal alignment and make the title centered. We can change the layout to type 2, which gives the title a container around the title. And this gives us some options with what we want to do with the container as well. So we can actually have a container background image. So we can load something out of our library and put something behind there. So maybe this girl typing. We can add parallax scroll effect to the image as well. And we can also do some more design work. So given that this background image kind of messes with the text a bit, I might put some overlay on there as well. So let's choose a white overlay, and we can add transparency so we can see the image through the overlay. So that looks pretty decent. Again, you can do it the opposite way we did before. Use a dark image with white text. I'm using a light image now with dark text. So either way will look good. Hit publish. Rather than having an image background, you can change a background to a color here, and you can choose a gradient as well for your background. So lots of ways to do your title. Next thing, we can actually look at the cards. So we go into card options, and here we can see our card elements. So we've got a featured image, some post meta. The title is here, which is there. You've got an excerpt, which is there, and post meta again. So we've got lots of ways we can arrange this. For example, if we wanted to move the title, we wanted to move it above that meta, that'll move that title up above that meta. So personally, I like to actually remove the post meta altogether. You can edit the post meta as well. So at the moment, we've got news and useful. Those are the categories. We can actually add something there. So if we want to add the author, we could add the author in there. If we wanted to add say the published date, we could add that there as well. So that adds post meta there, and maybe we could turn that bottom post meta off altogether. So we could turn that one off, just turn the visibility off on there, and that tidies that up. We can even turn all the post meta off and just have title and description, which looks pretty good as well. Once you're happy with what you've done, go ahead and click publish. And let's look at this post number as well. You've got 2 posts per row here. I think 2 is usually pretty good, like 1 or 2, depending on how focused you want to be on the image rather than the excerpt. I don't really like going to 3. I think it looks too busy in most cases. So 2 is good. right now it's set to 4 per page, and that is okay because we've actually got a pagination load more tool there. But if you wanted to add more on there and have a longer display grid, then totally increase that number there. Some other cool things are under the design tab here. So we can actually change the background color, for example. Let's go with a gray background on there, and that'll change the background behind our card. So let's say I wanted that blue maybe, and then just we could make the transparency on there and just give it a bit of a subtle effect. Maybe that would be better with gray. Yeah, so a little bit of contrast, I think, kind of makes it a little bit more interesting. You'll notice there's this thing called card shadow. Right at the moment, it's quite subtle, but we could choose a darker color and make that card shadow a bit more prominent. They even have more card shadow effects where we could tweak, say, the offset if we wanted the shadow to move a little bit, and you could tweak that to get that exactly how you want. The other thing we've got is a border radius on the card. So right now it's 5 pixels. We could make it more obvious with a 10 pixel or even 20 pixels to make it even more round. So just set that how you like. You can even tweak the actual font sizes for your title and excerpt. I'd rather leave that as the theme just to keep everything consistent. So I'm going to leave those on default. So that should be enough to get you started with the cards. Let's go back to our actual blog posts and let's look at the pagination options here. So we've got pagination turned on, which is great, but they've given us a few ways of displaying this, which is awesome, I think. You've got standard pagination, which will just give us the normal button numbers and a next as well there. The other one that's really cool is infinite scroll. So rather than having to hit anything, the user, when they scroll down, it will just start loading more posts and it will just infinitely scroll all your posts. So that is pretty trendy at the moment as well. I kind of just like what they had, load more. Fairly simple way of doing it. You can even customize the actual text in there just by saying, say, more, for example, even make it more simple. But I think that covers the main features of our blog page. So I'm going to hit publish and let's move on to formatting the actual blog post. So I'm going to load up one of these blog posts. This is what we've got for the blog post. And to get to our actual blog post options, we go back to our main menu here and we're going to do single posts. So under single post, again, we've got 4 different layouts. 2 of them are involving sidebars, 2 of them don't involve sidebars. So I'm going to use, there's narrow width and there is normal width. So I actually think the narrow width is more readable, especially on bigger screens. I suppose the other option is if you use normal width and then change your content area style to boxed. That's another way it's decent. But I think I might go back to the narrow width option there with the wide styling. And you'll notice they actually have the featured image as the background of our post, which is kind of cool. It might not work with all styles of blog, but I think it looks pretty good. Alternatively, what you might like is to turn the featured image on. And then we might change this container to use a gradient rather than the featured image in front of our title there. So to do that, we have to work on our actual post title. So that's up the top. And we can change our background here. So here we've got container background image. I'm going to change that to none. And then let's just try replacing this with a gradient background instead. So let's go container background. And we've got a few choices here. We could replace the background with the color from our theme. So that looks pretty decent. The other thing, if we wanted to be a little more fancy, we could grab a gradient. They actually have a few pre-designed gradients here. So go with one of these. I think that one might be pretty suitable. So totally up to you. I might actually go with this. I think that's pretty cool. I might go with this one. And I just want to simplify the actual title itself now. So that's under general. And again, we've got the elements here that we can add and remove. So I might turn off that post meta and turn off the post meta there and just have the title. So by now you've got the general hang of changing your post and your actual post page. So the really important part of using WordPress, this is really, it's one of its original main functionalities was having posts with a post page. So this is how we manage this through the customizer. So I'm all good. I'm going to hit publish. So one last thing before we wrap up is the contact page. So I'm going to work on that right now. Okay, so now I'm on our contact page. Now this is the same as any other page. The only difference is that we've got this little form down here. So we can actually go into edit page and look at what's happening. So if we scroll down, we'll actually find our contact form is sitting there. And all this form is a block in Gutenberg called WP Forms. And you can select the form. We only have one form on this page. It's called Contact Form. which is the form we're displaying here. Now to edit this form, we actually have to go into the WP Forms plugin and work on it from there. So I'm in the dashboard and WP Forms should be on your menu there. We've got our contact form there where we can edit the form itself. And in this form, we can edit, change fields, those kind of things. So if we wanted to say remove that subject field, we could just hit that bin there and get rid of the subject. We could put a number in there instead. And we could call this phone number, for example. Call it phone and go ahead and save that. And you can make them mandatory by putting the asterisks there. You can click required and that will make the user required to fill that in before they can send the form. So just set this up how you want, change the fields how you want. This is quite drag and drop, quite a friendly way of building a form. When you're done, click save. And the important part is under settings and notifications. So now here is where you find where the email gets sent to. So any form emails will go to the admin email. You can leave that as it is and receive the emails from that email address, or you can customize it and put your own email address in there where you want the form sent to. Now, depending on your hosting, it may be better to change the from email to match your actual site. That can make the emails send more reliably if you're using PHP email. So I might just make that contact@ideasdemo.site. So it's coming from the same domain as where WordPress is from, so it matches up. The other thing that's really good if the emails aren't sending is to set up a SMTP plugin. So I've done a tutorial on how to do that. I really recommend setting up SMTP in WordPress to make all your WordPress email notifications more reliable. I'm going to hit save here, but WP Forms actually has a setup wizard that will point you towards SMTP setup. So once we close out of there, we go back to WP Forms, go to the main options here and click on SMTP down there. And if you haven't set up SMTP already, this will walk you through the steps. I've also done a complete tutorial. So I'll put the tutorial in the description so you can set up reliable, good deliverable email for WordPress. I definitely recommend doing this. So now back on our page, we can edit pages, we can change the buttons, we can change all the blocks in Gutenberg, customize our blog page and set up our contact page. So these are the skills, the main skills you need to build basic WordPress websites. And overall, I think this was a pretty good experience and as good as most WordPress themes I've used in the past. So hats off to Blocksy. All right, so from here, if you want to set up that SMTP plugin, I'll just pop that video right there on the end screen. And if you don't have WordPress hosting or you want upgraded web hosting, check out my Cloudways tutorial there, get a free trial, test that one out. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.